All right. Well, welcome everybody here to Traction Thursday. It's my pleasure to introduce Bob Ferguson, and I am going to let him just take it from here.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here. I was going to talk about the provocative issue of selling wellness in Fairfield, which is always a very interesting thing since there's so many different ideas and events have overtaken. So if you want to know my view and my program about how I maintained vitality at an age that used to be considered old, just go to summit.living. Pretty much everything is there. The only thing I'm going to add is a tab called civic engagement, because that's missing. But all the rest of the things that I do are there. And I'll just make one statement about that. There is no out for having a strategy for maintaining health as we get older. Gregory was an Alzheimer's researcher, and I'm sure he could, in fact, someday, Gregory, we're going to get you up with your Alzheimer's researcher hat on and talk about maintaining cognitive health. The point is that, and what we're going to be talking about with strong towns is the obvious thing. Someone in Kansas City, a doctor in Kansas City once observed to me, he said, "I made a great discovery, Bob." He said, "Every system is perfectly designed to get the results it is getting." I go, well, yeah, that would be the case. So if we want to maintain our vitality as we grow older, and who wants to be alive but not functional? No one wants to do that. We want our health span to be as close to our lifespan as we possibly can. So my only admonition from that standpoint is do your research, think about what it takes to stay healthy, and then start with very small incremental habits. Don't try to go to the gym 17 days a week. Just go do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, and build the sinews of habits so that as we get older, we simply are doing things that allow the body to age gracefully, not prematurely. So that's my entire talk that I was going to give you in summary. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, as many of you know, I decided that I've been working outside the system, feeding projects in, doing projects in, getting the mayor involved and enthusiastic, and Ed and other people about things like the Intelligent Community Forum competition and the Go Green Commission way back when that I co-chaired with our current mayor. And I toyed with the idea of joining the city council, should the voters consider that a good idea, a couple of years ago. And I got the feedback, no, you're more valuable doing what you're doing. Staying outside, feeding projects in. We have developed in such a phenomenal way in the last couple of years, and I have learned more. So that, again, should the voters agree with me, I think I can be quite valuable being on the inside of the decision-making process, feeding ideas and enthusiasm, working collaboratively with my colleagues there to do one thing, and that is to make Fairfield a strong community. Because every community has it's a binary choice. You can either be strong or you can be weak. You can't really be in the middle. You're either going up or you're going down. And the definition of a strong community is a community who is working within a theoretical system of behaviors and policies that allow the city to thrive financially and culturally and economically and humanistically, in every way, to thrive so that people want to live there. My personal view is that it'd be great if we had 2,000 or 3,000 more people in Fairfield. I don't want 30,000 more, but I'd love to have 2,000 or 3,000 people more, up around 12,000. If you look at the increase in tax base and vitality that comes from that, and that's not inconsiderable. Up to 12,000 is like almost 30% more population. So we can't manifest that out of nothing, right? Where's the housing going to come from? Infrastructure and everything like that. So if we're going to have a goal of growing our community, or at the very least not having the community retrench, but keep our population and grow it, we don't have to have 3,000 people, and that's just a plucked from air number. Don't hold me to that. But just some kind of population growth, some kind of growth of dynamism, then we need to be paying attention to what systems that we employ for growth, so we don't make some of the mistakes that the Strong Towns organization has been able to identify, which has characterized most of the growth patterns since the end of the Second World War. And so what I thought we might do is start with a little 2-minute introductory video. Let me do an introduction to the introduction. I've been seeing Strong Towns advertised for a number of years, and they sent me an email, and I said, okay, this feels like something that I need to pay attention to. And when I opened it up and they offered this I made a donation, and they opened the course up to me. You can get the course for free even if you don't make a donation. And I started to listen to it, and I kept going and kept going and kept going. And what I felt was everything that I have learned, I think that I know about human development and economic development and social development and place-based development, it's all here in spades, well worked out. This is another really great opportunity for us to use what we're going to get from Intelligent Community Forum. We are now, Joe facilitated the county, Connie facilitated the city to put a little budget together, and we are now members of Intelligent Community Forum. We're going to have a benchmark. One of the first things they do is come and benchmark your community against communities, a database all over the world, and so that we're going to get a scorecard. You're good at this, you got an opportunity to grow here. You're good at this, you got an opportunity. So we'll have that. But once we have the scorecard, the question is, what do we do with it? How do we get better at XYZ? To my way of thinking, the Strong Towns system is a fabulous bottom-up, facilitated by enthusiasm and policy from the top, but a bottom-up developmental structure that will allow towns to thicken up, densify, become much stronger, much more vital, much more economically successful, because infrastructure will be amortized over a denser population. And it's more fun. Up to a certain point, it's a lot more fun when you're around more people. So that's basically it. And I have one experience I'd like to share with you, because I don't know whether you'll hear it in this first 2.5 minutes, but in the process of the course, they talk about the development pattern that the U.S. has adopted since the end of the Second World War. And that development pattern has basically been grow, 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 grow. Build subdivisions, build infrastructure, without regard to what it actually costs to keep all that stuff up as time goes on. And he said, actually, throughout human history, up until the United States at the end of the Second World War, cities developed organically. You started with a mud hut in Mesopotamia, then a better mud hut, and then a bigger hut, and then pretty soon you had the Babylonian Empire, right? But it didn't happen all at once. It happened in a developmental pattern. He said, if you look at the strongest cities in the United States now, they are ones that either were lucky enough to comport with that developmental pattern from the beginning, or like Greensboro, North Carolina, which I visited about 10 years ago, where they consciously took on, and it may even have been Strong Towns that they worked with, but took on the idea of redensifying the core of their city, changing sidewalks, changing streets, making it people-friendly, not car-friendly, thickening up the core of their city, utilizing the water feature that runs, beautiful water feature that runs through the entire city that was not underutilized. When I went and walked around that city, it was one of the most blissful experiences I've had for the longest time. It was beautiful, vibrant, effective, successful. And so the antipode of that is more than 10 years ago, I visited a fellow who had a very bold program for a disinvested region, large disinvested region in Kansas City. It was called Hardesty Renaissance. Hardesty is a road that runs through that disinvested area. After World War II, what Strong Towns is talking about happened big time in Kansas City. The investment all went to the suburbs, all went to a ring around the city. The city itself, which at that point was vibrant, and particularly in the communities of color, there was a lot of economic vibrancy. Well, all the capital left. When you have no investment, what happens? It just rots away. And so we took a tour of this area, and it was heartbreaking. It was just like Berlin in 1945, just a bombed out, just gone. And so that stuck in my mind. So what the relevance of this to Fairfield is, the great thing about Fairfield is we're not next to Des Moines. So we don't have to worry about vast tracts of houses like Altoona or places like that, where it's vast infrastructure of housing without any urban density and that kind of thing. We're all by ourselves. And so we have an opportunity as we think about growing, and if I'm elected to the city council, I'm going to be asking people, let's think about growing. But how do we do that? We can't, we just can't wave a magic wand. We got to deserve population coming in. So what I'd like us all to start thinking about and becoming familiar with is some kind of valid model for economic development on the city scale that we can use as a model for growth, so that as we do develop, then we can use adaptive redevelopment, we can use the principles of densification, among other things, so that we end up with a really fabulous city. Even if we grow, it's not this sprawled out kind of thing that happens so often that actually ends up being economically unviable, in the future. I'll stop there before we run the thing. Any reactions? Does this all just like goo-goo and doesn't make any sense? Or how are people hearing this?
Thumbs up. Thumbs up. There you go.
Good. Okay. Let's listen. This is the introduction to the course. This is a come on that everyone can go and get this free course. It's about 2 hours of content, but you can do it while you're washing the dishes, going to the bathroom. You can listen to it. And I want as many people as possible to listen to it, so we can start having conversations.
With Strong Towns. Welcome to Strong Towns 101. This course has been viewed thousands and thousands of times. We actually are doing a remake of it now because it's such an important part of the Strong Towns story. I've been out giving basically this Strong Towns 101 lecture. We're going to go into more depth here, but I've been giving this lecture for 15 years now. And I've watched people come into it with kind of preconceived thoughts and have their minds just really, really blown. There's a powerful set of insights here, and I'm super excited that you're here with us doing it. Whether you are an elected official, whether you are a technical person working in the city building professions, or whether you are a concerned citizen who just wants to understand what's going on, wants to see their place become better, and wants to be part of making that happen, you are welcome here. This 101 is for you. This course is for you, and we're going to give you a bunch of stuff that I think is going to really blow your mind and really help you think differently about your city, about your place, about your neighborhood, about your block, about the people you're doing things with, about just what is possible for you today in your place. This really is a foundational set of insights to set you up to become a Strong Towns advocate in your place. What to expect in this course, there's a couple things. First, we're going to delve deep into why our cities are going broke. Why do our cities struggle financially? Why, despite all the growth, all the investments, all the things we do to create transactions in our community, why do we struggle to do basic things? We're then going to take a step back and look at how we got here. We at Strong Towns are not into the blame business, so there won't be a lot of finger pointing here. It will more be a bit of understanding of what were the very human steps that got us to this point. And then finally, we're going to talk about the Strong Towns approach. What do we do differently? How do we think about these things differently? How do we approach this set of complexities in a different way so we get a better result, a more productive result, a result that helps us become Strong Town? The goal of this series is to help you take action in your place, to help you become more aware, become a better advocate, and step up and take steps in your place to make it stronger, more prosperous, as a better place to live. Welcome. Let's get going.
Great.
Hi there.
So
Following, I want to take a moment to identify the core vision of Strong
You just
Towns,
click on
as
it?
well as to
I
touch
was
on
trying-
something of it.
There we go, thanks.
here we go. Good. So that was just a bit of an introduction. And what I'm going to do is play one more 5-minute video. And it's in the middle of the course. And it is about the idea that it's impossible to have a strong town without strong citizens. And it is the strength of citizens who are willing to go in and mix things up, put their nose into things that may not be natively their business, that actually allow cities to prosper. And I will, I'll use the weeding example. Who would have, I've talked to city officials, said, if someone said, you can get a bunch of volunteers and 2.5 months later, you're going to have no weeds and about 2.5 miles of street, how plausible would you have thought that? And they go, not really very plausible. So someone had an idea that we should really be without weeds. And they were willing to galvanize support, get deputy weeders out there. And now if you walk on Central Square and you walk around, the town is way more beautiful. So that is just a little tiny example of how one person who decided to be an advocate could come in and make a shift. Gregory, I know you're working on that, on the community dialogue. Many of us are working on our own level. David, and feeding ourselves. So I want to play the next clip, which is 3.5. Just go find that. And then we'll have a discussion. Then I want to just kind of open this up for ideas and thoughts about how we might want to do this. But I think we ought to spawn a Strong Towns chapter out of Traction Thursdays. What do y'all think? You need to go take a look at it and see if it if it passes muster. But if it does, then that's what I'd like to do. Okay, so 3.5.
All right, our fifth principle is that strong cities, towns, and neighborhoods can't happen without strong citizens. So what or who is a strong citizen? Well, if you're watching this video, chances are you are a strong citizen, because a strong citizen is simply someone who cares. The conventional approach to building a city relegates the people who live there to a surprisingly passive role. We pay our taxes and then the government provides services. And that's the extent of it. And a lot of residents are comfortable with this arrangement, and a lot of people in local government are comfortable with that arrangement. In fact, some within government might go so far as to think of citizens as customers. It's a very transactional relationship. We pay our taxes, City Hall provides services, and you can actually go to city halls around North America today and you will see signs hanging on the wall talking about customer service. The mayor will come up to you and shake your hand and say, how's our customer service today? Did we give you service with a smile? Like you're leaving a Walmart or a Costco or something. This is not the approach of a strong town or city. In a strong town, residents are not merely consumers of the goods and services that are provided for them by the city. We are co-producers of our city. We aren't customers, we are co-creators. As the great urbanist Jane Jacobs has said, cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody. Strong citizens co-build and co-create together. And we are more convinced than ever that great cities, great places, places that are going to endure, they are not possible without the deep buy-in of residents, without people being brought into the process. Something that I learned during my years of doing rural community building work is that one of the best predictors of whether a young person will return to their rural community after college or after a career change was whether or not they were made to feel from a very young age like they were a valuable part of that community, that they were a co-creator, that their voice mattered. And I think that this must be true for people of all ages and in communities of all shapes and sizes. If you want people to come to your town, if you want them to stay for the long haul, one of the things that you need to consider is whether or not people feel, and really not just feel, but that they know to be true, that they get to help shape their community as residents and citizens. And this is a two-way conversation, because not only are we as citizens stepping up and helping to co-create this place, we're taking responsibility for the street in front of our house or for the neighborhood park up the road, but the city in turn is giving us deference and agency to be a part of the solution, part of solving those immediate problems. They're not looking at us or at citizens as a burden or something to be overcome or at best tolerated. No, citizens are seen as what we are. We are shareholders in a municipal corporation known as the city. We aren't the problem, we are the solution. And you can see what I'm describing, this is not a passive role, it's a very active role. And one of the best things that I get to do as the Strong Towns community builder is that I get to work with our local Strong Towns groups, what we call our local conversations. Strong Towns Local Conversation is simply a group of people in a particular place. They're meeting to talk about the Strong Towns approach, and then they're working to put it into action together. These are groups of strong citizens. And as I record this, there are 207 local conversations around North America, with more coming online every single week. And every spring we do a quick survey of our local conversations. We ask them some pretty basic questions like, what are some of your group's priority issues in your community? What are some of the struggles you're experiencing in your advocacy, and how can Strong Towns help you in that work? We also ask them, how is your group taking action? And as you can see from the results of the most recent survey, our local conversations are taking action in a wide variety of ways. They are meeting one-on-one with local leaders. They are attending city council and planning commission meetings. They're getting elected to local office, getting appointed to commissions and neighborhood association boards. They are also collaborating with other like-minded organizations in the area. For example, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, there is a regular event called Food Truck Fridays. But there's almost no bike parking in the area. And so what Strong Towns Grand Rapids did was they collaborated with a local bike advocacy group to provide bike valet parking. Not only did this solve a practical problem, not enough bike parking, but it also demonstrated to the city that more people would ride their bikes to Food Truck Fridays if more bike parking was available. Our local groups are also organizing events. The group Vermonters for People-Oriented Places, or VPOP for short, they organized a screening of the documentary The Street Project. In fact, this was the very first meeting that they ever held. In Bloomington, Illinois, the Bloomington Revivalists organized a street cleanup. It was April, it was 40 degrees and hailing, but still 27 people showed up, including 2 city councilors, and they picked up 20 bags of trash, and they have continued to do this month after month. Our local groups are appearing in local media, they're writing op-eds and guest columns, they are doing newspaper and radio interviews. Local conversations are also organizing community bike rides, and here are a couple examples from Manitoba and Oregon. And if you look in the Strong Towns PDX picture, if you see in the back, like those things in the back of on the back of the bikes, they kind of look like fake pink bollards. Well, that's exactly what they are. They are fake pink bollards, because as the group was on this ride, they installed these fake bollards where they thought real bollards should go, and they ended up starting an initiative called the Billion Bollards Club. This is one of my favorite groups in Allendale, in Louisiana, in Shreveport. Allendale Strong describes itself beautifully as a learning, doing group of citizens. They're working together to renew their community relationally, economically, and environmentally. And Allendale Strong is spearheading a number of initiatives like a corner store food co-op, They're improving a local park. They're fighting a highway expansion in Shreveport. They started a hyperlocal podcast. This is really an amazing group of strong citizens. Allendale Strong is also joined with 4 other local conversations around Louisiana to create what they call the Four Corners Coalition. And the Four Corners Coalition is working together towards what they describe as the unstroding of Louisiana, which is pretty awesome. One last example is from Charlotte, North Carolina. The Charlotte Urbanists do a lot. They have resurrected that community's critical mass bike ride. They do what they call public policy power hours. These are street level policy conversations. And they also do monthly James walks. On one neighborhood walk, the group noticed that many of the bus stops in Charlotte, especially in the poorest neighborhoods, did not offer even a modicum of dignity to people who are using transit. Bus stops were often put in dangerous or inconvenient locations. There often wasn't any shelter, and often there wasn't even a bench for weary travelers to sit on. So what the Charlotte Urbanists decided to do was to kind of run an experiment. They decided to make a small bet. So they pooled together $100 of their own money. They created a bus bench, I think out of like old church pews or something, and then they installed it at a bus stop. And what they did was they waited to see 3 things. 1, would it be used? 2, would it be stolen? And 3, would it be removed by the city? And what they saw is that people were actually grateful for the place to sit, and no one came and took that bench, including no one from the city. So they built a couple more benches and a couple more, and eventually they launched a GoFundMe to raise money. And to date, they have built and installed more than 80 bus benches around the city of Charlotte. And when the Regional Transit Authority got together sometime later to decide whether or not it should spend millions of its own dollars to improve the more than 2,700 bus stops around the area, they cited the Charlotte Urbanist Bus Bench campaign as proof of concept. If you want to learn more about local conversations, if you want to find the closest one to you, if you want to learn how to start your own, maybe with some other strong citizens in your community, just head on over to strongtowns.org/local. What I think is so powerful about our local conversations, and really about all strong citizens like you, is 1, of course, you're solving real world problems, but 2, you're actually doing more than that. You are building a culture. You are making new culture. You are making a culture of participation rather than passivity, a culture of co-creation, a culture that says we are the help that we've been looking for. You are making a culture of care. And that's just incredible. It's just incredible.
So how many people, by raise of hands, have heard enough that they might mosey over and just enroll in that course and just piddle around with it? Anyone? Good. Yeah, good. So it's called Conversation, and I will look into it. And if I think I'm going to declare it, if I'm the only one conversing, I'll talk to myself. But I would imagine that there may be a few others who might want to be part of that conversation. What I like about this is that it isn't competitive with anything else you might do. It's not competitive with learning how to do community dialogue. It's not competitive with having a benchmark of elements of our city to understand what to work on. In fact, it is, in my view, the operational side of that, the citizen side of working with Joe and the other supervisors, the citizen side of working with the mayor and the city manager and the council. We're all in this together, right? And did you love that idea that citizens are not customers? They're not customers. We're not passive customers. Come on, faster, waiter, I want a peeled grape. No, we're co-creators. We're co-creators. So what do y'all think? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm feeling very inspired. So thank you for that. That was really, I guess, heart-opening to hear the story of Charlotte and the urbanists. And I really believe that we can do that here. And then, of course, I'm going to pitch what my group is doing. And so, the key is that, in my opinion, is that citizen activist groups are actually welcomed by the city council and the supervisors, and that there are natural conflicts and fears that might arise, and so that's one of the reasons why we had the Generations Over dinner. Thank you, Joe, for doing that, and Doug Florney, who's a city council member. And then we have a workshop going on in Asheville at the end of October, in which we're going to be discussing the dynamic facilitation and wisdom council structure that allows whatever group forms, there's always some minor conflict, stances occur, and then there's tensions arise. So a well-facilitated meeting is a meeting in which all voices can be heard and in which solutions and the collaboration emerges from the group. And so dynamic facilitation is designed to do that, as well as Wisdom Councils is designed to empower citizens to gather together. If you want more information about that, ask me.
Thanks.
And also I'm blanking on the name, our effort to take care of our seniors in place.
Fairfield Care.
Yes.
And the Healthful Village Network.
Helpful Village, yes. That seems to be dead on the mark to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you, Bob. Definitely, I feel like there's a huge opportunity in Fairfield to actually build a culture of co-creation and participation amongst the citizenry. I think it already exists, and it's just amplifying that. And it's rare and exciting compared to most other places to live. A couple of things that stood out to me, I liked the name of the Vermont group, like people-oriented places, something like that.
Pop Vermont, yeah.
And that's something I think about a lot in my work of operations management and how we manage projects together, which is humans are actually very important component parts of the systems that we engage in, believe it or not. And we often don't design things that way, I don't think. So taking that kind of approach to the city sounds great to me. And the last thing I'll just comment on is that the bus stop group that eventually they used their work as proof of concept for a larger city program. I think that's something to pay attention to for operationalizing different ideas. And I think more people like myself would engage at smaller scale proof of concept type of endeavors with more fervor and purpose if there was some kind of dialogue in place between those types of citizen activist groups and the city, and it felt like we were all working together on developing the future direction of the town.
Great, Avi. Thank you.
Other feedback, other questions? Jordy.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, I definitely agree with the audience that there's a lot of potential for Fairfield, but the elephant in the room is bringing and keeping younger people like myself, which is a huge problem because what's happening in the Midwest, towns are literally dying off due to an aging population and lack of young people staying long term. How would you get younger people like myself to come and live in Fairfield permanently for the long term?
Well, a short answer is develop a strong town. Do exactly this. Be a place where people want to go. But I do have to, and Dave, I think Dave had a comment.
Yep. I'll get back to Dave. Okay.
Here's a story. My toilet broke, and I called a plumber, and a young guy came out. No, I thought you had okay. Well, a young guy came out, and obviously, young 20s. And I was writing the check and said, well, how long have you been doing this? Well, I've been plumbing up in Iowa City for 5 years. But my girlfriend lived in Olds, and we would come down to Fairfield, and I fell in love with the place. And so we've moved down here. We're going to buy a house. I love Fairfield. This is a fabulous place. So, Jordy, you're here, and Avi and Ani, you're here. we already are a place where I think, the Kava Bar people, I talk with them. What we want to do is become strong, and then we need folks like you who come to organizations like this to step up into leadership positions, particularly among your cohort, because again, it ain't what them people are going to do, it's what we're going to do. So an answer, I would respectfully, send that question back to you saying, how can we work together with your age cohort to find out what younger people want and need? Because if your needs are not going to be met, you're going to go somewhere else. Why would you stay? Right. So the issue is, if we have ideas of what we need, then that's why we have these conversations, or meshed in or integrated with what Gregory is talking about, so that we have a place to have those conversations, right? This is one of those places, but we need more of them, right? That would be my longest short answer.
Hey, Bob. Hey, everyone. Lee Ross, co-founder of the CoLab here. I am not from here originally, but family here for many years. Thank you again for all that you do. I feel like there are so many other larger factors in operating on these other levels, such as our monetary system, the decline, not just of the amazing sea changes in our economy and in the world. People are struggling so much. Yes, smaller towns in the Midwest, but smaller towns everywhere. People are just trying to figure out how to survive. So when I look at a strategy for Fairfield myself, it has to be something that incorporates for whether you like it or not. I'm always like, why don't we have someone from MIU here to listen to this? Because that is important, because what I always often feel is, why isn't MIU driving the growth that we need with young people through developing small startup companies in our town that stay here?
We got one.
And
right
maybe
there.
we may have one. It's hard to, considering we have the CoLab. I would love to see, for me, coming from an event background, large events that are either tech or entertainment, and festivals, such as film festivals, which we, of course, don't have, because that's an issue about finding the funding, and everybody who has money here gets hit up for funding. So they're very wary of someone coming up going, can't you do 10 grand? Can you just do 10 grand? And those people are very risk averse, and that's even in my own family. I love EntreFest. I really love going up and seeing Alex on stage, and that's an amazing event in Cedar Rapids and Iowa City next year. And sometimes I think, what would it look like if we could bring those 200 some odd people down here? Because we have the infrastructure to host an event like EntreFest, and we have yet to create an event that catalyzes all the other things we're speaking about, such as more bike paths that are official. And so an event-driven, or MIU finally opening up some more, so we have an incubator inside, like Papa John's and other, incubators in the state, developing companies that are not just digital stratosphere.
Although we love digital stratosphere, so let's
So anyway, that to me is, it's the chicken or the egg, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of chickens and a lot of eggs, but here.
I feel that there's a real absence of information being disseminated now that we no longer have vibrant newspapers. I'm going to say that. I feel that we don't get, I know that there's this big controversy about Walton Lake. One of the problems was people didn't seem to be aware of what was happening. with the city council. Why didn't they know that? It's because it's hard now to get that information when our newspaper only comes out a couple days a week and we only get Fairfield news once a week. People don't know where online to find local news. So I feel like it's really important to have another venue where people are coming together, and maybe if we develop the Strong Communities organization, local issues will become more apparent to more people early enough that it won't become a controversy. And it might also be an incubator for people to meet and plan. Like at one time we were having Fairfest, and that was an instance where we had a lot of people coming from out of town. It was very popular. You know, the music festival, I think around 2015, that was being bankrolled by, you know, a few wealthy people, and it ultimately couldn't sustain itself. But it was very successful in terms of bringing people here, and maybe if we're all working together, we can find a way to make it economically viable.
It's very good.
I'm getting back to the inspiration and the Charlotte urbanist. And what I see there is that when we have pilot projects, as you suggested, like the beautification committee, what happens is that the citizens are then acting in service in a way, not only to the community, but city council. And city council starts to see citizens as collaborators rather than the ones who come charging in to the city council hall and giving our administrators a hard time. And so when I think about the ramp, I'm thinking, what are the low-hanging fruits that we can do as citizens to demonstrate our hearts are in collaborating with you. We're not here to make trouble. We're here actually to increase the vibrancy of our city. And so that's where I think one of the first meetings I'd love, or conversations I'd love to have is, what can we do as citizens that really demonstrate a pilot project, so to speak, that really demonstrate a benefit for the city that the city council would love for us to participate in.
Thank you, Gregory.
That's good.
Hey, Dave, I'm going to call on you.
Couldn't get him off the hook, huh?
No,
Here we
as
go.
long as I got the mic, no one is safe. Dave, you told me a story about how when you got onto the school committee, there was a particular, difficult circumstance, and you were able to work within that committee to work with a set of ideas that is now allowing the school system to have uncommon success compared to the past, even with a lower budget. So just the idea, and your many years of banking, how does this set of ideas strike you, and what kind of general lessons can we learn from what you were kind of the very beneficent effect that you had on the school committee?
Well, that's a big thing. First of all, I find it interesting. I mean, I'm third generation Fairfield. So I was born and raised here. I went away to college and the military, came back, took over the family business. So this is all very interesting. I have a lot of stories, a lot of stuff, a lot of history. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking me, but I think that I'm very proud of the people currently I work with on the school board and the leadership of the community. And I think the biggest thing was what I've heard, strong citizens. It's simply a matter of commitment. I told the story when we were hiring. They wanted to know what kind of person we needed for the superintendent. And I said, we need Matt Dillon. We don't need Wyatt Earp. And everybody looked at me like you're looking at me now, like, what the Sam Hill is he talking
What
about?
is he talking about?
Well, if in our generation, Gunsmoke was the biggest thing on the block. And Matt Dillon was the biggest, baddest, fastest gun, played by James Arness, who was 6'7". And when he told you to get out of town, you packed your trash and you got out of town. Wyatt Earp's the same way. We have a problem. We hire a gun. He's the biggest, baddest, fastest gun. And when Wyatt Earp tells you to get out of town, you pack your trash, you get out of town. What's the difference? Matt Dillon loved Dodge City. He loved the people. He lived there. He wasn't in it for the money. He was in it for the people. And he was committed. Wyatt Earp, he'd stay as long as you'd pay him. If you didn't pay him, he was gone. He's only committed to Wyatt Earp. And I think the biggest thing over the years that I've seen that has deteriorated Fairfield is we had people who were simply there for themselves. Strong citizens is the key. You can have all these ideas, you can have all this, but if you don't have people who are committed to Fairfield, and you don't have people leading it that are Matt Dillons and not Wyatt Earps, you're going to fade away. So
Hear, hear.
I think that's what we've done at the school board. I'm very proud is that we've got a group of people who don't have their own agendas, that have one agenda, and that's Fairfield Community School District. Ride or die.
Beautiful. That's
That's nice. Very well said. Very well said.
Thank you, Dave.
Very well said.
You're doing what you're doing. Okay, so I'm going to look into the mechanics of starting a Strong Towns conversation. I would imagine it's probably pretty simple. We can probably birth it right out of Traction Thursdays here, and we'll just kind of see what happens. I do have a Strong Towns onboarding set up with one of their representatives on the 15th. And I will go through that and find out, and I'll let him know, and I'll give him all the information about how cool Fairfield is to begin with. I would imagine that we're going to attract their attention just like we attracted Intelligent Community Forum's attention. And I imagine we might get some special attention as a potential exemplar in a very small city of what can be happening. So anyway, that's great. One thing I will email out to everyone, but if you go to my Facebook page and ignore the posts you don't like and go to the one that has a podcast, the first of 2 podcast episodes that I did with Lou Zaccarella, who is one of the 3 co-founders of ICF. Beautiful, professionally done podcast. And while the first time I heard it, I thought I was just barely north of incoherent. The second time I listened to it, it sounded a little bit better. But it was a good, honest conversation. And normally those podcasts are half an hour. We ran an hour. So they decided to give both of the podcasts in September to Fairfield. Of the top 7 communities, we were the one that they wanted to interview first.
There you go. There you go. Let's give Bob a round of appreciation for his work. It strikes me that this is a community entrepreneurial opportunity. And when I hear this and hear all of the great things happening here in Fairfield, and to echo a little bit of what Dave said, it's you have to make some hard choices. It's hard work. And any entrepreneur who's started a business, it's hard work. But if the goal is something that you all rally behind, I have no doubt that it can get done. So I think this is fantastic.